take a few. In this lesson, we will learn how to use pronouns or words that take the place of a noun. Remember that a noun is a person, place, thing, or animal. Remember that we've learned that subjects tell whom or what the sentence is about. Let's read the pronouns in the word box aloud. They are called subject pronouns because they can take the place of the subject of a sentence. Let's read them together. You can read out loud while I read. He, she, it, we, they. Remember that the subject tells who or what the sentence is about, and these pronouns, they can take the place of that subject. Let's try reading some sentences and see if we can use some pronouns to make them better. Read the first sentence along with me. Lucy looks up at the dark sky. Lucy sees the stars. When I hear the word Lucy repeated in that sentence, it makes it sound choppy. What word could we use from the box above to replace Lucy? Did you think that we could use the word she? You're right. She refers to a girl or a woman. So when we replace Lucy, we can use the word she. Let's try reading those sentences back. Lucy looks up at the dark sky. She sees the stars. I think that sounds much better. Let's try our second set of sentences. Carlos looks up at the sky. Carlos sees the moon. We have another example where Carlos is repeated and it makes our sentences sound choppy. I want you to think for a minute, what word from the box could we use to replace Carlos in that second sentence? Did you say that we could replace Carlos with the pronoun he? I agree. Let's try reading those sentences back together. Carlos looks up at the sky. He sees the moon. That sounds a lot better. Read sentence number 3 out loud with me. The moon is full. The moon looks like a gold coin. Let's look back at that box. What word could we use to replace the moon? I think we could replace the word moon, the moon, with it. Did you think we could replace the moon with the pronoun it too? Good job. Kiss that brain. Read sentence 4 with me and let's try it again. The stars twinkle. The stars shine bright. Which word could we use to replace the stars? Which pronoun from the box above? We could replace the stars with they. Nice job. Let's try the last one together. Lucy and Carlos and I gaze up at the sky. Lucy and Carlos and I try to count the stars. That sounds like a lot to keep repeating all of those names. What word could we use to replace those names? Which pronoun from the box? We could replace Lucy, Carlos, and I with the word we. Let's read that back and see if it sounds a little better this time. Lucy, Carlos, and I gaze up at the sky. We try to count the stars. Pronouns, when we use them to replace a noun, help us to make our sentences sound a little more smooth because we don't have to keep repeating that same name. We just practiced using some subject pronouns. Now let's talk about object pronouns. Object pronouns take the place of a noun that comes after a verb, and they can follow words such as to, at, for, from, or about. Let's try reading some of our object pronouns in the pink box together. Read them with me. Him, her, it, us, them. On our next slide, we're going to practice using some of these object pronouns in the pink box to make our writing sound better. Let's practice making our writing sound a little better by using some object pronouns. Read the first pair of sentences with me. Lucy sees Carlos. She gives Carlos a book. Do you think that sentence sounds really its best, or is it a little choppy and we should fix it? I agree. I think we should try to use some words to fix it. First, let's think about the verb in each sentence. Lucy sees Carlos. What's the action word there, or our verb? Did you say sees? You're right. Try our second sentence. She gives Carlos a book. What's the verb in our second sentence? Gives. That's right. I noticed we repeated that word, Carlos. Think about the box above. Which object pronoun could we use to replace Carlos's name? Think about it. Did you think that we could replace Carlos with him? You're right. Let's read those sentences back and see how they sound now. Lucy sees Carlos. She gives him a book. You've got it. That sounds so much better. Let's try in the second set of sentences. Read those out loud with me. The book has pictures. Carlos looks at the pictures. What's the verb in the first sentence? Has. Has is our verb in the first sentence. What's the verb in the second sentence? Carlos looks at the pictures. Did you say looks? You're right. Think about which word we can use to replace pictures in that second sentence. Remember, we've got some words in that box above. Did you say that we could use the word them? You're right. Them is used for one person, thing, or animal, so them can replace the word pictures. Read the set of sentences in 3 out loud with me. Carlos likes the moon. He wants to go to the moon. First, think about the verbs. Did you think that the verb in the first sentence, Carlos likes the moon, was likes? Nice job. In the second sentence, he wants to go to the moon. Go is our verb. Now we were repeating that word, those words, the moon. So which pronoun could we use to replace the moon? Think about that. Did you think that we could replace the moon with it? You've got it. It is used for one thing, place, or animal, so we can use that word it to replace the moon. Read the set of sentences for 4 out loud with me. Carlos gives Lucy a book. The book amazes Lucy. Think about those verbs. What are the verbs in the 2 sentences? Did you say gives and amazes? You're right. What word could we use to replace Lucy? I hope you said her, and if you did, you're right. Her is used for one female, a girl or a woman, so we can use Lucy. We can replace Lucy with her. Last set of sentences, are you ready? Read them out loud with me. Lucy tells Carlos and me about the stars. She tells Carlos and me a lot. What are the verbs? Tells and teaches are our verbs. When we repeated Carlos and me, that sounded really choppy. So what word could we use to replace Carlos and me? We can replace Carlos and me with us. Let's read those sentences back and see if they sound better. Lucy tells Carlos and me about the stars. She teaches us a lot. You did a great job replacing those words with some object pronouns. Okay, friends, I'm going to need some help. I have a story here, but we're missing some words, so we're going to work together to choose the correct pronouns to complete the story. Read the first sentence with me. Mr. Smith teaches Lucy about the stars. That sentence is complete. Let's read the second one. Blank learns a lot from blank. This sentence is missing a subject and another word. In the first pronoun, we can put a word, in the first blank, we can put a pronoun here that stands for one of the nouns in the other sentence. Let's look at the first verb, learns. Who is learning about the stars? Lucy is learning about the stars. So which pronoun can we use from that box above to take the place of one female or girl in the sentence? Did you say we could use the word she? You're right. We can use the word she to replace Lucy. Now let's look at the second blank. We can use another pronoun here to tell who Lucy is learning from. Which noun in the first sentence tells who Lucy is learning from? Mr. Smith teaches Lucy about the stars. Who is she learning from? She's learning from Mr. Smith. Now there are two pronouns we can use in that box to take the place of a man. We could use the pronouns he or him. So I want you to think for a second. Which of these pronouns can go after the word from? Did you think we should use the word him? You're right. Nice job. Let's continue reading this story and think about the words that can go in each of those blanks. Read the third sentence with me. Blank tells Lucy that the stars are balls of gas. What word could we use to describe Mr. Smith in this story, in this sentence? Did you say he? You're right. He tells Lucy that the stars are balls of gas. Let's continue reading. Blank burn like fire. We probably would say the stars burn like fire, but what's a better word to use so we're not repeating ourselves? Look at the box and see if you can think of a word that we could put in that blank. Did you say they? Nice job. They burn like fire. Let's keep going. Mr. Smith tells Blank that the stars are far away. What word could we use to fill in that blank? Did you think we could say them? You're right. Mr. Smith tells them that the stars are far away. Let's keep going. Carlos and I study the moon. Blank learn that the moon is not a star. Blank is a big rock. What word could we use in that first blank? So that first blank is talking about Carlos and I, so we could use the word we. We learn that the moon is not a star. How about that last blank? Blank is a big rock. What word could we put there? It. It is a big rock. Nice job, friends. Let's read that story back and see if it sounds a lot better. Mr. Smith teaches Lucy about the stars. She learns a lot from him. He tells Lucy that the stars are balls of gas. They burn like fire. Mr. Smith tells them that the stars are far away. Carlos and I study the moon. We learn that the moon is not a star. It is a big rock. We learned a lot today about subject and object pronouns, so now it's your turn. I want you to think about what you see in the night sky. We learned about Lucy and Carlos and what they saw, so I want you to think about some of the things that you notice in the night sky. Take a few minutes and write some sentences about something you have seen in the night sky. I want to challenge you to try to include at least one subject pronoun and one object pronoun. Go ahead.